How's it going, everyone? Nick Hamlin here with a very special guest on the phone, 2004 World Series champion and Fox Sports 1 analyst, Mr. Gabe Kapler. Gabe, thank you so much for joining me. How are you doing, man?
I'm doing great, brother. Thanks for having me on your show.
It's awesome to have you. Starting off, I'm going to kind of just get this out of the way. Obviously, with the passing of Tony Gwynn yesterday, it's pretty sad news for the baseball world and just the world in general. Do you have any reflections, stories? Did you ever get to meet the legend, Mr. Padre?
I've had some opportunity just to interact with him in passing. I didn't have any sort of personal relationship with him, but I did play with his son, Tony Gwynn Jr. in Milwaukee, who looked up to it. In fact, he idolized Mr. Padre. So I got to know him through his son. But I think it's time that we celebrate what he accomplished on the field. And that's me. This guy just did not strike out. If you look over the course of his career, he struck out less in his 19-20-year career than Miguel Cabrera, arguably the greatest hitter of our generation, struck out in the last 5 years. So you're looking at a 5-year stretch for Miguel Cabrera to strike out as many times as Tony Gwynn did in his entire career. And what he accomplished with his plate discipline and his ability to barrel up the baseball, he might be second to none. Really, really extraordinary career for Tony Gwynn.
Yeah, he actually had 434 career strikeouts, and I'm pretty sure Mark Reynolds had at least half that in 1 year, so it just really puts it in perspective. That's ridiculous. So starting off with your playing career, it started in college. You got drafted out of college with the Detroit Tigers in the, what was it? Let's see here. 50.
Drafted 57th round.
Wow. Yep, and I actually mentioned with you on Twitter that you had some NFL stars get drafted before you, Lori Malloy and a guy named Tom Brady who was pretty good, I heard. And so what was that experience like, getting drafted in such a late round?
It essentially means that you're a roster filler. So getting drafted in the 57th round means you're going to go to whatever town they assign you to, and you're going to be their last man on the roster, essentially. You're not going to have an opportunity to play very much, if at all, and your odds of getting to the big league are slim and none. It just so happened there was a guy on my first professional baseball team in Jamestown, New York, who was drafted high. He was a big-time prospect, and he just was a little bit soft. So he had a pinky issue during the first couple of games of the season, so they had to insert me into the lineup, and I actually played really, really well. And I never came out of the lineup, so it was one of those moments where I needed something to break my way. It did in the form of a teammate pinky, and I was able to capitalize on that opportunity and play well enough where my organization didn't want me to come out of the lineup, and I just slowly built my prospect status from there.
Right. Well, back in '95, the draft maybe wasn't as publicized and as popular as it is today. How were you notified that you got drafted?
I actually wasn't notified that I got drafted. 3 days came and went, and I thought I had not been drafted. I was playing in a scout league game at the University of California, Santa Barbara, where the scout that scouted me for the Detroit Tigers was running the game. I hit a home run in the game, and after the game, he came up to me and said, when do you leave for Jamestown, New York? I said, I have no idea what you're talking about. He said, well, you got drafted on the third day. And I said, well, nobody notified me. And it just turned out that, I guess back then, the communication was not crisp or clear, and I had been drafted, but nobody had told me to that point. So I found out in a subsequent game, but otherwise I would have had no idea.
That's pretty interesting. So then you break through with the Detroit Tigers in '98. What was that experience like, getting to the old Tiger Stadium and just really fulfilling your dream and your goals as a player to really make it to the show?
What stands out in my mind is seeing my locker and my jersey hanging in those old wire mesh lockers in the old Tiger Stadium.
Right.
That was one of those goosebumps moments for me. Like, this is a dream that I had since I was 5 years old. And finally, I'm seeing my locker next to a guy like Tony Clark and Damian Easley and Dean Palmer and Brad Austin. And then knowing that I was about to play on the same field as Ty Cobb, Hank Greenberg, Al Kaline. It was extraordinary. It was one of those things that really is out of a dream. And the idea that I had finally fulfilled that dream was pretty rewarding for me, to say the least.
Is it true that, well, I believe that you played the last game at Tiger Stadium, the old Tiger Stadium. Is that What was that experience like? Because, I mean, it didn't really have much playoff implicance or anything, but from what I hear about it, it was like an electric crowd, cameras everywhere. It seemed like a pretty surreal moment.
Yeah, so it's very difficult to compare to Fenway Park, but you being from Worcester and probably knowing that your followers are Massachusetts native, the best way I approach it is, like, what if it was the last day ever at Fenway Park?
Wow.
Imagine what that would be like, the emotion, the tears, the flashbulb. It would be like the end of people's religion to a degree. And
Wow.
while Tiger Stadium is at Fenway Park, there was certainly an element of that, people feeling connected to it. So all of that emotion, all of that energy was balled up into those final moments. It was like a World Series game. It was that big.
That's incredible. So then you played, what, 2 seasons in Detroit? And then you went to Texas in a trade that actually was a kind of a notable trade. It sent Frank Catalanato, Francisco Cordero, a few notable names at the time. So then you go to Texas. What was that experience like playing down in Arlington?
The most notable name in the trade at the time was not Cordero or me
Juan Gonzalez,
or any of the guys that you mentioned. It was actually Justin Thompson.
Oh,
Justin
really?
Thompson was a dominant left-handed pitcher, young, dominant left-handed pitcher. It would be like the equivalent of today, a guy like, I don't know, maybe, man, I'm trying to think of the right comp here that will be really understood. Not like Matt Harvey level, not like Jose Fernandez, but just a click below that.
Yeah, maybe like an Andrew
It was
Kashner
Juan
level. An Andrew Kashner level, maybe. Something like that along those lines.
Yeah, somebody like a Kashner. This was the only, Joe Thompson was the only guy that was consistently getting out Ken Griffey Jr. at the time. Oh my God. In any event, the transition to Texas was amazing. I was welcomed with open arms, and that's one of the best games of my career on opening day in 2000, like to make my debut for the Texas Rangers. Did a couple of home runs on the same day that Ivan Rodriguez did a couple of home runs. Ironically enough, it was a great moment in my career.
That's awesome. And then did you get traded at the deadline to Colorado, or was this at mid-season, or was it after the season when you got traded to Colorado?
It was on my birthday, July 31st. The trade deadline was moved to Colorado for Todd Hollandsworth, former Rookie of the Year winner for the Los Angeles Dodgers.
Right.
And it was a change of scenery move. I think the Rangers outfield was crowded. I had struggled thus far in that season. Todd Hollandsworth had struggled a bit for the Rockies. The right move at the right time for both careers. Interesting experience in Denver, but it was short-lived, as you know.
And then finally in June of 2003, you joined my beloved Red Sox and really became a fan favorite at Fenway Park. Obviously, 03 was kind of a disappointment, losing in the Game 7 of the ALCS to the Yankees. But then what happened in 04, I'm sure, is just an amazing experience, an amazing memory for you. Talk about, a lot of people wanted me to ask you, what was going through your head specifically and the team's head after you're down 0-3 to the Yankees that year in the ALCS?
There's been a lot of conversation about this. Obviously, Millar's statements about don't let us win tonight.
Right.
Then we got Pedro, then we got Schilling. All of that is really famous, and I also think it's really overblown. Because the fact of the matter is I think to a man in the clubhouse before Game 4, this was we knew the odds were stacked against us, and it was more about let's go out, play the best baseball that we can play, see what happens, rather than we know we're coming back to win this thing. I think that's sort of been sensationalized from a media perspective. The true energy of the clubhouse at that time was we had poured it all out on the field. We'd done everything we possibly could. The ball wasn't bouncing our way. Let's go out and see what happens tonight. And then after we won Game 4, that's when the momentum started flipping, and it was in our favor at that point.
I feel like, almost after that ALCS at St. Louis, who was the best team in the majors that whole year, didn't even have a chance because you guys had such a momentum swing coming off those games, and it was really just kind of an easy World Series for you guys. So, you were actually...
That's what it felt like to us, too. There wasn't a whole lot of stress associated.
Yeah, it didn't...
It felt like our World Series was against the Yankees.
Didn't really seem too stressful. So, you were on the field, correct, when the final out back to Folk, flips over to Doug Minkiewicz. What was that? Did it feel like the weight was off your shoulders?
When that final out was made and I sprinted in from right field, I couldn't even feel my body. It felt like an out-of-body experience. It felt like I was watching somebody else in a movie, as if I had a camera from above and I was witnessing it unfold. I sort of stepped out of my body, and when I dove into the pile, that's when I kind of came back to my body and was able to feel my teammates.
That's awesome.
It was, it's indescribable. There's no real way to encapsulate a moment like that.
Well, just kind of going back here, what was it like at the 04 deadline when the Red Sox traded, Nomar and then they got Doug Mankiewicz, Dave Roberts, and Wendell Cabrera? I mean, that kind of showed it was a really risky move by the Red Sox front office, but it really seemed to pay off. What was going through the players' minds at that time?
Well, the Red Sox front office had proved that they were unemotional, that there were no attachment to people. It was an attachment to a team. And although Nomar Garciaparra had been arguably the greatest shortstop in baseball for a stretch there, it turned out that the return was greater than what Nomar was worth from the perspective of the front office. It turned out to be a brilliant move because we acquired in Orlando Cabrera a spark plug. We acquired in Doug Mankiewicz a great defensive first baseman. And obviously we missed Nomar because we love Nomar. He's extraordinarily productive when he was able to be on the field, but he also had some injury issues at the time. So it turned out to be welcomed with open arms once we realized how powerful the impact of the players we were getting in return were going to be.
Yeah, definitely. So the 2005 season, a lot of people don't realize that you did go and play in Japan for a short period of time. What drove you to go play in Japan for the Yomiuri Giants? For how many games did you end up playing over there? Because didn't you come back to the Red Sox in late 05 in July?
Yeah, it was June or July that I finally got back on the field. But things just didn't work out for me in Japan. I loved it. Had a great experience. I went over there for the culture, to experience something new, and to play every day, frankly, because with the Red Sox I wasn't an everyday guy. I was getting about 250, 300 at-bats a year. I really wanted to see if I was able to play every day, what that would mean for my career. It didn't work out that way. Obviously, I missed the Red Sox, missed Boston desperately, and when I returned, it felt like I had never left.
Right.
So, I think it was about midsummer that I got back on the field. And obviously, I tore my Achilles tendon in 05. Came back in 06, and I got back on the field in about June of 06.
It's kind of cool that you wanted to test out the culture and stuff. On your website, caplifestyle.com, I saw that former Red Sox Michael Bowden, he wrote like a guest article on your site about the Japan culture and like the food and stuff. I thought that was really interesting, and I feel like that's almost why a lot of people go overseas to just kind of get that experience. So, kind of talking about your website, caplifestyle.com, what's that all about? Obviously, you're in prime physical shape, and that's been known throughout your whole career. But what are your goals? What goals are you trying to achieve with your website?
Education, essentially. I just want to illuminate how people can lead a healthier lifestyle through good choices as it relates to nutrition, workout, general energy and well-being. And there are tips that I give on a regular basis. Yesterday, I talked about how skateboarding, to go get groceries can replace your time in the car and be a good way to burn calories versus standing on a Stairmaster. Right. I talk about what food to keep the ballpark when you go watch a baseball game. I talk about how to grow your own food, how to make your own soap. Anything that I'm working on, I try to share with the readers of the blog. And I do have frequent lifestyle guests. Today, we have a lifestyle guest talking about her injury. Her name is Kavita Chan. We also had, like you had mentioned, Michael Bowden write a guest post. Evan Longoria will be writing an upcoming guest post. So, there are athletes and entertainers around the country who will be contributing. And essentially, it's an education site. To raise people's awareness on how to be healthier.
It actually educated myself because I didn't even know you could bring like a soft cooler to the ballpark and bring your own food. I didn't know that. So that was definitely helpful, and it saved money and eat healthier. So moving on to 07, you announced your retirement in December of 06 from professional baseball at the time. Then did you want to just give back? Because then the Red Sox gave you an opportunity to coach Single A, the Greenville Drive. And what was that experience like, just kind of almost giving back and testing your managerial skills?
That was something that I had always had on my mind. The opportunity was given to me coming off the season where I had been basically not playing it myself. I had coming off an Achilles tear. I didn't have the first step quickness to go get the ball in the gap. I pride myself on good defense. I wasn't able to provide that. So it felt like the right opportunity at the right moment to go hone my managerial and leadership skills. And so I loved it. It just so happened by the end of the season, I was ready to come back and play. My body felt rejuvenated, and it felt like the right time to make my re-entry into Major League Baseball. So I signed with the Milwaukee Brewers in '08.
Right. So you just led the segue to Milwaukee Brewers in 2008. It clearly showed that you could still play. You had a pretty good season. What was it like to play alongside of Ryan Braun? I know this might be a question you get frequently, but as his name has been in the media over the past few seasons, he even shares the nickname the Hebrew Hammer with you at the time. What is he like as a teammate?
Ryan's a great teammate, and I know it's on the tip of everybody's tongue asking about PED, shoots, and things of that nature. But look, Ryan was not the first guy that I played with that had issues with performance-enhancing drugs. Remember, played with Alex Rodriguez in Texas, played with Manny Ramirez in Boston.
Exactly.
Ryan made some poor choices. And I don't condemn my teammates for making choices that aren't conducive to the best interest of their career. I judge them on their character, their personality. I thought Ryan was a great teammate. I thought Manny was a great teammate. So I give those guys the benefit of the doubt. I've always had a public stance against the use of performance-enhancing drugs. At the same time, I still respect my teammates for the people that they are. Ryan is a good person.
That's awesome. Do you ever think that you're obviously in such great shape that it's unfair to you that you're not using performance-enhancing drugs? That maybe if I was using these drugs, that I'd put up better numbers or better power numbers. Do you ever think that?
Well, I know that it cost me millions of dollars, the decision to not use performance-enhancing drugs. If you look at my first year in the major leagues, I hit 18 home runs. Now that the testing policies are a little stricter, those 18 home runs for a rookie might be viewed as a pretty decent season. Back then, it wasn't all that great, and then the following season I hit 14, the next season I hit 17, and it wasn't enough to keep my starting job. So clearly, that's indicative of the fact that I lost a lot of money and a lot of service time by choosing to not use performance-enhancing drugs. But the benefit is I get to look my children in the eyes. They're 14 and 12 years old right now. They're at that stage where they're going to be making decisions coming up here, and I can look them in the eyes and say, look, this is how Dad chose to do it, and I feel like they'll be proud of me as such, and I'll be proud of them if they follow my footsteps.
Right. I'm certainly proud of players that choose to do the right thing. It's really admirable, and I'm sure the fans definitely respect it. And you don't have to live with the burden that I cheated at the best game in the world. So it's pretty awesome that you played the game clean and you still had success doing it. So moving on to Tampa Bay in 2009, 2010. This is kind of a question. Obviously, you're under Joe Maddon. What's Joe Maddon's managerial style like to Terry Francona's?
They're both really loose. One of the things that I always say about the two men is if I'm sitting in the dugout and I look down and I look at their facial expression, their tone, their body language, I don't know if we're up 10 or we're down 10. Both very distinct shields. Both keep the clubhouse loose. Both maintain an open door policy. They allow for you to come in at any moment and have a conversation with them and utilize their leadership and their guidance. And Joe Maddon is famous for his keeping things loose through doing stuff like hiring a medicine man to change the fortunes of the club. He knows that that's not what is going to change the fortunes of the club. But he believes that if he takes the attention off the players, puts the attention solely on him and the quirky, crazy things that he's doing, then they will have less burden on their shoulders. Will give them the ability to go out and perform pressure-free.
That's awesome. Do you remember? Obviously Mark Burley's perfect game. You were the one that hit that ball to Dwayne Wise in center field where he bobbled it. Well, brought it back, bobbled it, and then caught it to save the perfect game. What was that like? I've always kind of wondered that.
At the moment I hit the ball, I really wanted to go out of the ballpark, of course. I wanted to be the one who broke up that perfect game. I also broke up one a couple of years prior, 2008, against Chris Young when I was with the Brewers. And this one I thought was going out of the ballpark. But the moment that Wise caught the ball, after I had allowed it to sink in a little bit, I said, this is Wise's moment. This is Burley's moment. I felt good for the both of them, rather than feeling sorry for myself or for my teammates. Sometimes you have to celebrate what run if it went out of the ballpark.
Right.
But forever, Dwayne Wise is immortalized in the city of Chicago as is Mark Burley.
That's awesome. So did you sign a deal with the Dodgers in spring of 2011, and then you just got released? Is that what happened with the Dodgers?
If it came down to the last day of spring training, I think the Dodgers really wanted to keep me. I really wanted to play at home in Los Angeles.
Right.
Just so happened, Xavier Paul was out of option. He was the other guy they were making a decision on. He was young. He was cheap. He had much more upside than I did at the time. I was at the downside of my career. And so they just made the decision they were going to keep it next fall and allow me to walk. And they offered me the opportunity to go play at AAA. I had enough and was ready to go home. So I just, that was the moment that I decided I was going to walk away.
So then you went and joined Fox Sports 1 as an analyst in 2013 when they promoted their new network. Was there any thought before joining Fox Sports 1 that you wanted to go back to being a manager at some sort of level of professional baseball?
That time will come for me. I'm not in any hurry to get there. I really want my boys to be up and self-sufficient, perhaps even out of the house. Like I mentioned, they're 12 and 14 years old. That gives a little five-year window. Look, I'm 38 years old. I'll be 43 when they're pretty self-sufficient. I think that's a good time for me to go back and decide to hold my skills as a major league manager.
I totally understand that. So Fox Sports 1, is that do you enjoy that? Because it really seems when I watch you, you got Millar on the MLB Network, then you got yourself on Fox Sports 1. It's pretty cool watching that. You obviously know what you're talking about to great extents, but what's that job like compared to being a professional baseball player? Is there a certain time you need to get to the place and all that stuff? Is it kind of similar to some extent?
There are some similarities. I get to the studio at about 3 o'clock in the afternoon for an 8 o'clock show, and that time is spent prepping. I'm going over the topics that we might discuss that night. Obviously, I'm watching the baseball games and making sure that I keep note of what's happening around the league. There's a lot of prep that's similar to batting cage preparation and outfield infield practice. And then, when the lights come on, it's sort of similar to game time. There's a lot of adrenaline. Our Fox Sports Live, the flagship show for Fox Sports 1, it's the highlight show. There's a live show. So oftentimes the camera pops on you, and there's a lot of adrenaline associated with that. You want to be prepped, you want to be ready. So there are some similarities to Major League Baseball in that regard.
I totally understand. It's really kind of cool to see you translate your skills and what you've learned from, Cap lifestyle to baseball to television. It's really great sharing that with all you and talking to you. It's really awesome. Kind of a story I'd like to share with you that is one time I went to a Red Sox game, and I want to say it was 08 or 09 when you were playing with the Rays. And what was I? I was 13 at the time, and 12 at the time. And I you signed an autograph for me, and I said thank you for 2004, and you go you remember that? I'm like, yeah, I do, and it was a pretty cool moment. You're like, oh, you're a true fan then. I'm like, yeah, I don't know, it's just something I would remember because you always were so kind to the fans, and that's really what's just great about the way you played the game. So I appreciate that. It was a pretty cool memory for myself too.
I appreciate you for having the passion that you do for what you do, man. Really
Thanks.
Cool stuff.
Well, I'll let you go, but once again, thanks so much for joining me. I really appreciate it. I'll tweet the link out to you. You can watch us, listen to it, and just thanks so much, Gabe. I really appreciate it, man.
My pleasure, brother. I enjoyed it. I'll talk